Well, thanks for joining us here again on Gridiron TV, and thanks to Adam Goldstein. Adam Goldstein is the author of Tailgate to Heaven, a description of his epic fan journey around America in 2008. Adam, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me on.
So like we said, it's an amazing book. It describes your journey. In 2008, you did a tour of tailgating around NFL and some other football games. Can you, first of all, what was the inspiration behind this?
I mean, I've always been a huge American football fan since I was 5, since the Bears. So I saw the Bears win the Super Bowl, and I've always enjoyed watching the games. And obviously, like any fan, anyone would like to go see more games. So that was always, I guess, it within me. But the big thing that caught me was the tailgate, and specifically because I guess we don't have it here, and it really struck me when I went to a Bears game in Arizona on a Monday night football game in 2006. A friend of mine was getting married nearby, and I'd been to NFL, so I'd been to a handful of games and kind of missed its tailgate and hadn't really heard of it. So went to the game at kickoff time. The Bears were losing 20-0, and I kind of got upset, so I went to leave. And as we left, that's when numerous groups in the car park watching the game on flat screens by their cars, their pickups, their whatever. And as I got closer, I realised they brought a grill with them, lazy boys, deck chairs or whatever. And it was very strange. And they just sort of allowed me to watch the game to the stadium car park, and the stadium's behind us. And they just said this is what they are, they're tailgaters. So, and they come early and they cook for each other and they have a sort of a party beforehand. And the fact that they were local fans and they weren't being aggressive towards me was also quite impressive, that they were willing to cook, just wanted to cook for me. And it was really social and laid back. And they said that this is what happens all over the country, and I didn't believe them. I thought this is very bizarre, and why would people do this? And they said that it happens, all teams obviously have different food. I guess they took me through, and I just thought, wow, I've always wanted to go to every stadium, who doesn't? And I'll probably in my life go to 2 or 3 and tick them off. But then I thought, now you've got this tailgating thing to look at, and I was just sort of stunned, and I really wanted to do a trip and so write a blog, now a book, about the tailgating, the cultural side of American football, especially the stuff that we don't often get a lot of media exposure to in England. And this was obviously before the London games, when they had the official tailgate, if you like. So I was just wanted to sort of show the world, or show. So I thought to myself, okay, well if I'm gonna go to a bunch of games, obviously I've got to go to check out every stadium. So living in London, I'm like, well that's got to leave my job. That's a road trip. Looked at some schedules from the previous years. Looked if I could do it, and it looked possible. I was obviously hoping for a good schedule where there was a good movement of Thursday to the Monday night games. So assuming that everybody would roughly get prime time, that would have helped. So I thought it's a tailgating thing to do it on the road, so it's a road trip. And then I just had to find the money. So it was about £30,000, and so I thought, okay, I'll sell the flat went up for sale, sold that, had the money, and then I just had to try and convince my girlfriend not to leave me. So she was thinking about coming with, but a non-NFL fan, it's a tough ask to go to 35 games in 18 weeks, and she would have had to have left her job. So she was confused. She thought her ex to Watford games because she thought it was going to be the same. And I tried to convince her, but she wasn't having any of it and just wanted me to come home. But I did bring her out to America for the last few weeks of my trip. Brought her up for our 2-year anniversary to North Carolina, to Charlotte, to see the Panthers against the Bucks on Monday Night Football. But I actually ended up doing 40. I did a Miami Dolphins playoff game, the wild card game, and I did 2 college games and a high school game that blew me away. And all in all, it was just basically trying to prove that American football is just a fun day out and experience, regardless if you like the game or not. So that was it. It was quite a daunting trip. I mean, I don't really drive that much in London, but just signing up to drive 50,000-60,000 miles, I didn't really have time to get worried about it or how much I'd burn out. But as it got colder and as the Thursday night back then kicked in, it did get quite demanding, and the downside was sometimes that I couldn't quite spend as much time at the tailgate and sometimes I had to leave games early to make 1,000 miles for the next night. So it was just that touch, few too many games, and America was just that touch too big to make it, pinpoint perfect.
Yeah, really amazing trip that I'm sure a lot of fans would dream about doing themselves, whether they've been to an NFL tailgate party or not, or just watch it on TV. But when going around all these different stadiums, you get to meet the different fans and you see the different foods, different cultures. What was your favourite spot on the road? What was your favourite stop out of all these trips?
In terms of the tailgate or the city or the stadium?
Yeah, in terms of your the best tailgate and the best experience that you had.
Okay. Well, I think the best tailgate, Lambeau Field, Green Bay Packers. It just feels I didn't go in December when it's freezing cold. And it's just very friendly fans. I'd say they're one certainly the most friendly fans. They have some pretty good food, an older crowd, and they love their football. I'd also say that the Oakland Raider tailgate was a lot of fun. Maybe it's because I was expecting them to take my firstborn and be nasty as their sort of image goes, but they couldn't have been nicer and really, really open. And I'd say the third one was Houston. Again, a bit like Oakland, I wasn't expecting a lot as a new team, and I was just blown away by the size and the scale of their tailgate. And obviously in Texas everything's bigger and just a lot of food. But I did eat some weird things. I was actually at the Super Bowl tailgating for 3 days. I actually didn't get a ticket to the game, and I was a food judge, and that's when there was all sorts of weird foods coming my way, from rabbit, bear, raccoon, venison, and just recently I ate deep fried alligators. I thought I was going to, I'm a Bears fan. Obviously, I went to root for all the home teams wherever I went, buy something from each home team. It was tricky when I saw the Bears away at Indianapolis, and obviously in the end I sort of rooted for the Bears. And what I thought was going to be difficult was people not really being very welcoming. They might have thought I was a bandwagon fan or some jumping around from team to team. I think a lot of NFL fans are probably as big as fans of the NFL as they are their own team. So people would just genuinely opened up their tailgates and welcomed me in, and they didn't sort of go, "Oh, he's a Bears fan, see you later," and nothing like that. Even at Raiders and stuff like that. So that was really powerful, because I thought that I'm in their country and sort of moving around from team to team, and I'm not sure you would get that same reaction. I'm a Spurs fan here, but if I went to Newcastle v Man United, do a similar trip, I'm quite sure I'd get that same sort of pat on the back, good luck. And obviously, as I got a little bit of media and it started to pick up, people were aware that I was coming, and they would say, "Meet me here, and we're going to cook this." So it wasn't like I was going as a spy. People rolled out the red carpet, and it was my one in a lifetime trip. So I definitely wanted to go and try and find the good tailgaters and good fans, extreme fans.
Yeah, we can see that on your videos on your website. You took some video footage of you with these fans at the games and at the tailgates, and you certainly do seem to get a great reception, and it seems like everyone's just there to have a great time, regardless of what jersey they're wearing and what team they're supporting. So obviously it must have been taking a lot of pressure off of you. But now that the trip's over, you're back to regular life, and then you decided to write the book. So you sat down and wrote the book. How did you enjoy the actual writing aspect?
Well, I had a blog as I went, which I was always a little bit behind, and then I didn't know I was going to write a book. It would have been nice. And then I got back and I put out some proposals, and I had the first chapter done, which is pretty much as the first chapter stands currently. The first chapter done, and quite a few publishers came back and said, "No, you really need to sort of look at American football in a unique way," and etc., etc. And then I sort of changed the structure a couple of times, more proposals. What happened was the following year, in 2009, the person that hosted me at that Super Bowl party, he was doing a trip around. He's a professional tailgater and doing a trip around America in his American school bus turned into a tiki bar. So he said, "Why don't you come on board, go to some games with us, help out with driving?" And I was like, great. So on that trip, I actually went to 14 games, some college games, some NFL, and cooked badly British food at some stadiums. So that was quite important for me to see the other side of tailgating, me being the one cooking and seeing what that was like. And it was at that point that I had Potomac Books say that they were interested and they'd like to see a copy of the whole book. And at this point I hadn't written the book. It was the first chapter and some ideas and the structure, but I obviously had written the blog and there was a lot of ideas noted down from both trips. So it was January, February 2010, around that time, when I had some time to sit down. So my girlfriend's parents had got a little place in Wales, like a holiday home. So I went down there for 10 days and pretty much knocked out about 300,000 words. But a lot of that was obviously cutting and pasting, rewriting stuff. And I actually wrote my original structure is in themes, a whole thing on tailgating, a whole thing on fandom. It wasn't done as game 1, game 2. And it was probably over ambitious and it was very, very long. So they said, yeah, we'll have a look at the book once you rewrite it in a more sort of chronological structure. But they offered me my one half of my advance, and then depending on how good the final edit was, if you like, I would get the second half of the advance once they went to print. So it was always kind of like it might not even make it, despite the advance. But whilst I was writing the sort of, I don't know how at risk it was of not becoming a proper book, but it was certainly hard getting the publisher, and then it was quite difficult in going back to work, getting re-edits and edits sent to me saying you've got to change this, how do you feel about that? And where it was difficult is I originally would have liked the book to go down perhaps more of a reverent Dave Gorman travel-y, funny story, and it's come out probably more about the sport and American football, and there's just so many games that I obviously had to write about the actual sport on the field, and hopefully people get an insight into the culture behind it, the tailgate and the fans, and just sort of a fun road trip book. And I hope that people who read it aren't necessarily NFL fans, but would still hope after reading it maybe go to a game or two.
And so now the book's out. It's certainly a great story, not just for fans of tailgating, but also, like you said, a description of the sport. So for people who also just want to understand really what the sport's about and kind of the passion that people put towards it. But you've got a couple of things come up. You've got your book tour going on right now, and you've also got the upcoming Wembley game. So tell us a little bit about the book tour and also your plans for NFL Wembley. Sure.
Yeah, the book tour was a little... tried to make the American book tour echo the original tour as much as possible. I was asked to be inducted into the Pro Football Ultimate Fan Association this summer, which is a group of super fans, the ones you see with the war paint and the hats and all the beads. So I was nominated as the first international fan, and that takes place at the Hall of Fame during Enshrinement Weekend. So I thought I'd love to do that, go see all the crazy fans, mad fans that I'd met originally. And then I thought, why not? So I thought, let's make it a book tour and go to some pre-season games and start the Hall of Fame. So I also wanted to go to every NFL city, just because I would echo the original tour, and I'd almost feel bad going to not going to an NFL city. So I kind of put together a schedule. It's on the website, tailgatesheaven.com, and it was 50 days, and sadly there was some incidents. We got rear-ended. Our car got rear-ended in San Francisco. We got burnt out. There was some areas with some cities we had to miss, but so it was a kind of a unique, bizarre book tour, because who goes into a sports bar trying to sell a book and do book signings? It was quite odd, but we got good reactions. People once they heard the story, maybe the accent, people were kind of all ears. So now I'm back in the UK, been back about a month, and watching the games on TV, and so I've got a few signings for the UK tour. But it's actually really more of a London tour. I've got this weekend is the big Wembley game, so on Sunday, where a lot of fans, more like the unofficial tailgate, where a lot of fans congregate, and they do a good thing there, and it's a lot of fun. So I'll be there signing books, and then the following day, on the Monday, I'll actually be at Waterstones in Uxbridge in West London. That's actually going to be my first signing in a bookshop, so I feel very kind of like officially a writer with that one. And then I've got a Moorgate in East London, a number one sports bar, on the 22nd of November, which is Thanksgiving, and that's a sort of triple header of games, and I'll be there. I think there's a Q&A. I believe Mike Carlson's going to be there, and I think that's 2 games on that night on the Sunday. So and that should be fun. I may try and squeeze in 1 or 2 more here and there, but I'll probably do more the rest of the UK either in the off season or next season or next pre-season. So I'm just trying to. It's almost like I just need to stop travelling for a little while and take a breather and not go too far. So it should be exciting, and it should be great to do a signing. So many signings of my own.
And so we've discussed the tour, the book, and everything. Anyone who's listening to this and thinking, I've always thought of going on a little tour, doing a couple of games around America. What kind of advice would you give to someone in terms of planning the trip, and also actually any advice to whether it goes as smoothly as possible for them?
Oh, it's interesting you say that. I was helping somebody only today. I helped a couple on their honeymoon go to 25 games, and that's really what people can get in touch by all means if they're planning the trip. I'd love to help people to just go to more games. I think that the first thing is probably drive it. I know America is big, and I'm quite happy to drive, so I would say drive it. I think you're more flexible, and it's not too expensive gas and hire car. The biggest thing is you've got to get to the games early. If it's a 1 o'clock local game, you want to be to really go around and see everything and see the tailgaters and all that. You want to be getting there about 5-6 in the morning, which is quite early for a Sunday. If it's a 1 o'clock or a 4 o'clock game, plan to stay after the game, go back into the car park. People should depending on city and depending on the team, depending on the weather, people should still be tailgating. So you've got a full day there, and some cities are better at the bars, and it really does depend. But now you've got Thursdays every week, the Thursday, Sunday, Monday. You really can, in a 2.5 week holiday, hit a handful of games, especially up in the northeast. Hit the Florida games. So I think that, and also tailgaters. A lot of tailgaters have their own websites or Facebook pages. Find out. Say I'm coming from England. You should try and bring something. I guess out of respect, they're going to cook. So I don't know, bring something British, some mustard, some pickle, or something that's kind of small, you can fit in your suitcase, and just to say, thanks for ticket inside. Well, I was silly and I panic bought tickets on Ticketmaster General Sale. I would say a lot of places scalp, and a lot of places you can go via StubHub and get tickets before. Getting tickets isn't that difficult if you don't mind paying a little bit more, especially if it's a big game. But if you're contacting tailgaters, and I don't mind people contacted me, and I know a handful of tailgaters in pretty much every team. Most tailgaters, 30, 40, 50 people in a group, there's usually 1 or 2 spare tickets or season tickets they have, or they know someone's going to be picking up tickets. And so I'm more than happy for people to email me, and I can kind of sort of work out a little schedule for them if they want. But getting hotels, if you don't mind staying in kind of off the kind of highway places, you can keep driving, pull over, that's it. I mean, it really should be quite straightforward for people. Yeah.
Well, that's a great discussion of the book and the tour, so thanks very much, Adam. We'll be looking forward to seeing the book, and anyone listening can also feedback their thoughts either to Adam or to ourselves. Good luck for the signings, and thanks for joining us once again, Adam.
Thanks for having me on. Cheers.